penis.
Virginity sucks. Or maybe it doesn't? It's hard to tell these days. Did you know it used to be that virgins were the default, and the ones who had too much sex were the ones that got made fun of? A lot's changed in the last few decades. Hey, I'm not complaining. I think it's great that we all became a little less prudish and learned how to have fun responsibly. Well, for the most part. There's still a few kinks to work out before we're all responsible enough to live sexually active adult lives. This video was originally going to be about the rise of sexless men, and the rise of sexlessness in general. In a time where sex should be up and teenage pregnancy down, suddenly, it seems like purity culture is making a comeback. Whether or not that's by choice remains to be seen. When I was younger, sex education just wasn't taught in my area. No condoms, no hygiene, nothing.
It's now illegal.
I really wish I had been taught exactly how to talk to women, how to initiate safe sex with informed consent, and other very important things about being an adult. So here we are. Nearly a decade after I should have learned how to do these things, I've made a, hopefully, clear and concise video about how to go from being alone to meeting someone to being sexually active if that's what both parties want, all in a way that's respectful and safe. Let's talk about the process of getting from A to B to C in the most straight to the point and grounded way possible. The first thing you need to know is this. Where's the best place to meet people?
You take me to him! Take me to the son of a bitch! Take me to him! Come on! Go, 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 go!
I've heard a lot of ideas from a lot of different people over the years. Go to coffee shops, gyms, things like that. But from my experience, the following is the best mindset that you want to have. There's two ways of pursuing and starting a relationship. Physical connection first, or emotional connection first. Some people like to establish a physical connection first and figure the rest out later. These are the people who like to hook up. I used to be strictly against this way of thinking, but over time, I've become more of a libertarian when it comes to these kinds of things. Who am I to judge how someone wants to start a relationship? You know, there are a multitude of ways that work for different kinds of people with different mindsets. As long as you're careful and use protection, that is a valid way of starting something. If that's your speed, most of these people are at bars and nightclubs. Just make sure you're both sober before you engage in a hookup, so you can both give informed consent. If you want to establish an emotional connection first, your job is a bit trickier. The trade-off is what is a usually more stable way of starting the relationship. If you're looking for an emotional connection, don't go to places or events where it's immediately obvious that you're trying to flirt. Pick a place where there's already a lot of interaction expected. A class, interest group, a wine tasting event, volunteer work, dog parks, recreational sports leagues, and work. I don't care what anyone says, work is one of the cornerstones of people meeting each other. Whoever decided that it was off limits was just a bad partner. When it's too obvious that you're only interested in them to flirt with them, your first impression feels manipulative, especially if you're a guy asking a girl. There's that established gender role about guys only being interested in sex, and a first impression that feels manipulative is a recipe for disaster. Instead, use nonverbal cues to signal that you might be interested in a relationship if the other party is also interested. Let's say you've achieved step 1. You found a place where it's possible to establish a connection like this. Cool. How do I actually riz you up?
First I riz your brother. Now I raise you. Skibbity, my friend.
Now you've hit the step where a lot of guys get stuck. Your confidence carried you this far, but suddenly, the next hill seems too steep of a climb. You're just not confident enough. A lot of guys, and I mean like most guys, will tell you to feign confidence, to fake it. Fake it till you make it. But that doesn't really work, does it? The only time that works is when you're trying to manipulate someone, which we are not. Instead of trying to be fake confident, you need to not try anything at all. The old adage of being yourself is pretty much true here. But don't just be yourself. You need to talk to her like you talk to one of the boys. You know what I mean. Take the gloves off. No filter. This might seem like the nuclear option to a lot of you, but I don't know why this works. but in the very few instances I've had someone develop a crush on me, it's always been because I talk to them like I would talk to one of my friends. She's just one of the boys. I seem confident even though I'm not thinking about confidence at all. I think a lot of girls, just like anybody, appreciate when you just talk to them normally and just joke around. Be your normal, funny self. Don't obsess over every little line. Don't stop yourself from thinking, oh, that might be, uh-oh. Just say it. If you think it's funny, just say it. Don't act like you expect anything because, you honestly shouldn't. One of the benefits of establishing an emotional connection first is setting up a dynamic. Every relationship has a dynamic that's different. It might be a sassy one, where you both constantly make fun of each other and argue about stuff that doesn't matter. It's the kind of dumb shit the boys would talk about, or something that two work friends would argue about when they're bored. Could one man beat 100 gorillas? Or, no, shit, I had that backwards. Can 100 men beat one gorilla? Probably explains why most of the people who have had crushes on me, or dropped hints that they were maybe interested, were work friends. When you're in a dead-end job, and you start talking to everyone the same way, it really works. This way of thinking might not work for everyone, but it's the only thing that's worked best for me. Now, what if you're trying to talk to a guy? I don't want to leave the girls out of this conversation because I recognize talking to a guy can be just as daunting of a task. There's a popular belief that because you're a woman, if you get rejected by a man, you're the ultimate failure. So I can understand the hesitancy when you go to ask out a guy. But I'll tell you this, the way to a man's heart is being direct. That doesn't mean directly asking him out, you don't need to be that direct. I just mean that when you're in conversation, bring up times when you were direct with someone, or answer his questions as directly as possible, even if they're not related to your dating life. He might not realize it in the moment, but when he's thinking about this later, he'll probably appreciate that you're a straight shooter. You're easy to understand, which lowers his defenses, and it will allow him to consider a relationship even if he hadn't before. Why do guys love women who are direct? I really don't know, that's just how a lot of guys operate. I wouldn't say we're more simple than women or have less needs than women, but our brains do tend to focus on one thing at a time. And a lot of the time, that thing is work. When he comes home from work, he's now in relationship mode. So if you're trying to start something with him, recognize that keeping him guessing about which mode you're in is definitely going to drain his energy. It's more difficult now because we're all overworked and underpaid, so he has a hard time switching from work mode to relationship mode. Speaking of work, I want to quickly bring up the question of why men aren't having sex in general. As many of you know, there's been a significant decrease in the number of men who are sexually active. While some of this can be attributed to the men waiting for the right partner to come along, the sharp drop-off indicates something more complicated is at play here. And what I realized through a lot of research is two things. Two ideas that, in my opinion, are pretty much the sole reasons we've seen a rise in male virginity. The first is the economy.
I'm all out of money!
Men just aren't able to move out of their house to live on their own. And without the privacy of their own home, they don't feel comfortable dating and are especially uncomfortable initiating something like sex in their parents' house. The economy is a lot of things, one of those being a cause for shifts in mental health. When a man doesn't feel independent, he doesn't feel worthy of sex. Unfortunately for us, there's no real solution to the problem that we can achieve on an independent basis. You as an individual can't single-handedly fix the economy. The second reason is rigid gender roles, and how these roles determine how someone will view an entire gender. In the past, men had the power to have multiple partners. Men had the power to commit sexual assault and get away with it. Thankfully, we've created resources for people to report and receive support for sexual assault and domestic abuse. You may be able to curb these events within one generation, but you can't curb people's perception of men as a whole in one generation. Humans love creating patterns, and that includes biases against a group of people whose ancestors did these things. What's created from these understandable biases is gender roles, where men are expected to be sexually dominant and aggressive. We've created a world where it's okay for men to be the ones who are careful, but this is combined with people's perceptions of men as a group still being sexually aggressive. and this creates a lot of men who are perceived as one way even if they never exhibited those traits. And this goes for men's perceptions about women as well. There's a perception that women are always sexually submissive, quiet, even though that definitely does not describe all women. If it's wrong to perceive all women as sexually submissive, then it is wrong to perceive all men as sexually aggressive. We're at war with our own perceptions, and the only way to win that war is to recognize a bias and rise above it. I just want us all to judge individuals as individuals, not as stereotypes. To ensure that you, as a man, woman, or anyone in between, aren't confused with your stereotype, you need to learn about informed consent, which is the safest and most direct way to initiate sex. Informed consent is all about being direct.
Can I put my balls in your jaw?
Want to have sex? Is the least confusing way to ask if someone wants to have sex. But while that may be the ideal way to ask, reality is often disappointing. People generally don't like to talk during sex, and there's a silent expectation that you need to perform without speaking. In those scenarios, ask directly, do you want to have sex? But if you aren't going to do that, then you at least need to throw out some nonverbal cues. Let's assume you're already at the makeout stage. For women, playing with your hair and running your hand through his hair are two very good nonverbal cues that most guys will pick up on. For guys, most go with like a hand on the thigh, something like that. What's important is that your nonverbal cue is something that can be easily rejected. Nonverbal cues are also great for married couples who want to keep their activities on the down low. A hand squeeze, a massage in a particular area, or even a code word can all be used to ask about potential sex without saying it directly. Establish what these cues are beforehand so your partner knows when you're asking. Some people just aren't comfortable saying the word sex, so a nonverbal cue is required for them. You'll also want to build tension during the day. This is an art, not a science, but what is scientific is sexual tension. A lot of rejection comes from the surprise of the question. But making suggestions throughout the day that can be easily accepted or rejected can lead to a more fulfilling experience if they are accepted. If you're someone who only engages in flirting when it's in the evening and you expect to have sex, you run the risk of your partner feeling objectified. Think of foreplay as something that can happen outside the bedroom if your partner is willing. And that's pretty much all you need to know. Disclaimer, I am not dating anyone and I've never had sex. But I've done a hell of a lot of research on the topic of sex. It's a complicated thing, and so is sex. As with most of my videos, the examples I use are typically with straight relationships in mind, but they really are applicable to any orientation. Remember to judge an individual as an individual, and not as their gender role, and you'll be okay. So, thank you for watching this video. Subscribe for more sexual health and wellness videos like these. This one was weighted a bit, more on the side of the boys, but I also want to make videos that focus on other groups like women and the asexual community, so look out for some of those in the future. Thank you for watching, I love you all, good night.